Three, two. We're now live. Thank you very much for joining me today, Mike. Everyone here, thank you for joining us today for another exciting episode of Behind the Comic with Sean Fuller. All right, welcome everyone to another episode. In this series, I always like to spotlight incredible creators who are bringing comics to life. Today, I'm joined by Michael, a talented comic book creator, writer, and artist. We're driving into the journey of creating process behind his project and what comes next with the world of storytelling. Whenever you're a comic book fan or aspiring creator yourself, this is going to be a great conversation, so let's get into it. First question I would like to always start off with, can you start by introducing yourself and give us a little about your background? Just a little.
Sure.
Teaser.
My name is Mike Dolce. I use Michael in print, but all my friends call me Mike. So feel free to use either one, and I'm good either way. I've been creating comics for over 20 years now. I've been published by Image Comics, Cinescope. I've done creator-owned for a long time, and now currently doing a lot of work with Dren Productions, where I'm the co-publisher, and Rogue Matter, which is a LA-based comic book company where I'm doing some consulting out there as well too, and I got some projects coming out through them as well. So that is my background. I used to work at Wizard magazine when Wizard was a thing too, so always fun to talk those things as well. And that's my background.
Sorry about that.
You're good. I don't have much more of a background after that, so when you got up out of the chair, I there's gonna be a lot of good space there.
I was trying to get rid of this background noise. It was driving me crazy. What first drew you to comic? Was it reading, drawing, or something else?
I was both, I would say. I was always drawing when I was a kid, and I ended up doing, I got introduced to comic books through my friends, and I kind of think it was the perfect team up, to use the pun of what I like to, what I love to draw and what I love to read. So it was a combination, I'd say.
Okay, that's not bad. So you're definitely on the more artistic side because a lot of us start from the drawing aspect and then we move into, but we don't even follow the draw. We just follow it as a passion or a hobby.
Yeah. I mean, I ended up going, I did go to art school. I went to State University in New Paltz. I was a visual arts major. But it was actually there where, I always enjoyed writing as well. But that's where I kind of realized that, okay, I'm a really good writer. At least I was told by my professors, and I did very well. So that worked out good. And people seem to like my stuff. At Wizard magazine.
Hold up.
Oh, go ahead.
We're jumping too far. Hold up.
No, well, hang on. What I was going to say was what ended up happening, when I first graduated college, I was going to write and draw my comic book. And that was the book called Crossfire, which eventually became The Sire, which was the first successful book I had. And one of the guys that worked there said to me, he said, he would look at my artwork and he'd ask me, he's like, well, are you trying to do an art project or are you trying to make comic books? He says, because you probably you need to suck it up and find an artist to work with. If you're trying to tell a story, the art just wasn't there yet to really be successful. So, that's where I pivoted more into. No. Look, honestly, it was some of the best advice, it was some of the best advice because that's where I pivoted into leaning more on the writing side. And that's when my career took off. So.
Okay. Well, the good thing about that is, the good thing about that is because a lot of time people try to do everything themselves, and it's they think it's a superpower, but honestly, it's like a crux. It's like a kryptonite.
100%.
Okay. So where I was gonna go is like, where are you from, and how has your background influenced your storytelling?
Well, I'm right 45 minutes north of New York City. Grew up here. I'm in Nyack, New York right now. That's where my office is. It's where the Sire Studios offices are located. I grew up about 5 minutes away, and I live about 5 minutes away. So, having New York City around is always great because for reference material as well too. I mean, there was always a wealth of, especially as an artist, right? I mean, that's again, when I was a kid, that's what I wanted to do. So it was always kind of, walking around the city, and you can kind of taking the buildings and the perspective and things like that. So other than that, honestly, grew up with just a bunch of kids that loved reading comics. Had a good friend group, both in elementary school and in high school that just loved reading comics. So, and I actually, it dawned on me, I've never actually been asked this question, and it dawns on me. I mean, Wizard magazine was literally 5 minutes up the road from my house. So, and the store that started the magazine, I used to shop at. So I guess you could say it was a big influence.
You see those little stuff people always don't remember, but it's like, oh yeah, I used to
Yeah.
do that.
Yep. 100%.
And it kind of helps other people understand that this is always small stuff that adds to big things. And what were some of your earliest creative projects before comics? Actually, I know you touched on it a little second ago. So,
Oh yeah. Honestly though, that was pretty much, I was doing that since 6th grade. So I don't know. I don't think there was an earlier project. I was always drawing comics. I actually drew, about 150, comics where I fold the paper together and, you know, just draw and tell stories and stuff. So,
I'm trying to see if you did
either
the flip books where you just flip through the pages and just.
I tried doing that when I was a kid. Yeah, I definitely tried doing that. It was too tedious for me though. I was, here's the thing too. I run my own creative studio in addition to doing all the comic book stuff and publishing, and we do web design and all this other stuff too. And I just was never. I always had an entrepreneurial sense, which is something that didn't really dawn on me until I started my own business about 10 years ago. And so I was always interested in the big picture. So the tedious stuff, doing the flip books, too much. I was more about like, man, I want a whole library of books to sell, and I used to sell them to my friends. I used to make the comics. My mom used to photocopy them. We used to sell them for 50 cents. I'd make like $3-4.
All right, so my last question before we switch transition is normally like,
Sure.
who or what has been your biggest influence along the way? Actually,
Artistically, I grew up I read comics in the early 90s. So the whole, the image movement was huge back in the day. I loved Liefeld's work when I was a kid. I loved Jim Lee's work when I was a kid. Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson was one of my favorites, still one of my favorites. Actually, it's funny. I say was one of my favorites. He's still one of my favorites. Actually, I took my son to meet him at New York Comic Con. After we were done at our booth, I would walk him down there and said, "Hey, this was one of my favorite artists as a kid." And he goes, "Am I still your favorite artist?" I said, "Yeah. Oh, yes, you're still one of my favorites, but you were also." So those artistically, Frank Miller, I loved. I think Frank Miller was the first time when I was reading like Sin City and Dark Knight Returns where, all of a sudden the artistic, light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, there's so much more to comics than just the muscles and the, pouches and the, things like that. And so I think artistically that kind of sums it up. I think Darren Sanchez, who I mentioned before, was the guy, a good friend of mine who, I worked at Wizard, many, many years ago. He was the one that kind of steered me into the correct path. So he influenced a lot as well too. And Darren's a really great writer, and he's worked at Marvel before and done some stuff too. So it's good stuff.
I like when we can point to a few people that kind of had some early influence in our stuff. We just like their work,
Yeah.
And eventually we're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's very good to be able to, I think as an artist yourself, you go and enjoy the day when someone comes up to you and is like, yo, I used to love reading your stuff. And like, man, I remember when I actually was struggling just to do that.
Yeah. No, 100%, dude.
Different.
That's I actually have up on the wall there some fan art. People send me some fan art and things like that, and it's pretty awesome. I think it's really cool.
Hey.
On the writing side, Fabian Nicieza was, I always loved his work, and I actually became friends with him as well too later in life. And it's just funny because I would sit there and be like, reading through all those old comics I did as a kid. I'm like, man, I just ripped off your dialogue. Just it's everywhere, it's everywhere here. So it was pretty cool to see that.
If it's good, why fix it? If it ain't broke, why fix it? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
right.
Yeah. So all right. So I'm gonna go. So what I'd like to go now is that the comic spotlight. I know that's a lot of reasons why people come here, because it's like they want to talk about your project. So tell us what your current comic project, and what it's about.
Yeah, so currently, I've actually got a few in the hopper, but the ones I was talking to you about was Plan 79 from Outer Space. So this is issue 2. Issue 1 and 2 hit stores next month. So I'm the co-publisher of Dren Productions. Dren Productions produces a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. Plan 79 is the sequel to the worst movie ever made, which is Plan 9 from Outer Space. And we did Plan 59 a few years ago, creator James Massey and I. And it was very, very successful. So I kind of took the reins on this one. I brought in a co-writer. His name is Dennis Knight. Did a really great job of fleshing out my story ideas for me. And then by the end, we were, really both hand in hand in writing the book. It's a 3-issue series. We just finished kickstarting issue 3. I think it was like about a month ago. And that one, so it'll be hitting stores. Issue 1 will be hitting stores in October, issue 2 in November, and then in December, issue 3 will be in stores as well too. It's Plan 79 takes place in outer space after the events of Plan 59, where the Earth is not really inhabitable anymore thanks to the invader invasion, and they have to go find a new place to call home. In the midst of that, they end up on the moon of Europa next to Jupiter, and discover there's other alien races that hate humans just as much as the invaders do.
What? We are not loved anywhere? What?
It's it'll be a great story arc. We'll see how it goes. Perhaps maybe we will be. Who knows?
So
but by the cover of issue 2, so far no. So far the answer is no.
What inspired this story on its characters?
Honestly, I liked, when I was working with Dennis, I said to him, I was like, picture the movie Alien, the James Cameron Alien, where, you've got a great crew of people and they're in a dire situation in outer space. And so I would say that was probably the best thinking behind it in terms of what might have inspired it.
Okay. Can you share the journey of how this comic went from idea to something tangible?
Sure. Plan 59 started out as Plan 10 from outer space, and that was back in 2015. So James and I would do conventions together. We were at New York Comic Con, and he's like, Plan 9's in public domain. We could definitely do a book on that. I said, great. Here's my idea. He took the idea. He wrote like a 60-page script. James is just one of the most prolific writers I've ever known. I mean, he is ridiculous. He can really write, and write well too. And that's difficult. Sometimes you can write for volume. Writing for volume might not be as hard, but writing well, doing a good job when you write a lot is not easy either. And he was great. And so, I would tweak it. I would add a couple little bells and whistles to it. And then we launched it on Kickstarter in way back when, before we understood what Kickstarter really was and how to be successful at it. And we ended up having to pull the project down because we just weren't ready to do a Kickstarter. And so
there's such
we
a
ended
thing.
up. What's that?
I was gonna say that's such a thing. I think people need to realize that that's also a thing. And now I'm gonna actually follow up on that, but please finish.
Oh, good. No, I'm happy to talk Kickstarter because we've done a really great job. Kickstarter is the backbone of our business, which is now, in the last 3 years, we are in every comic book retail store. We're going to make a huge announcement, hopefully next week, about some more stuff going on. And, we're a real company now, and it started with Kickstarter. So, but once we figured that out and we started doing some successful projects on Kickstarter, and this is maybe, 4 years later, we're like, hey, remember that Plan, 59 book? Let's make it happen. And at that point we had started building up a fan base. We had a number of successful Kickstarters, and we knew how to do it. So that's really where it took shape, was a few years ago. And so Plan 79, actually, to be honest with you, we kind of just put Plan 59 up there. And then a few years later, when we were in comic book stores, we put it out in comic book stores, and the reaction was always just, this is great. My local comic book shop owner was like, more Plan. I want more Plan. When can you put more Plan out? And I said, all right, James, I think we've got something here, and let's do it. And it's true. 100%.
I look forward to those kind of requests.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny, actually. I see we have the Sire too, so I got to bring the Sire out as well too. So the Sire is another book, Sire Aftermath, that just wrapped up on Kickstarter. The second issue. It's about a superhero forced by his own costume to fight evil. It's like having a spider sense, but instead of warning him of danger, actually puts him in danger. That was my baby. I've been doing that book since, well, I created the character in 6th grade. That was the character that I kind of revolved my whole universe around. And in 2006, we were out through Aftershock Comics, and now we're published through Dren. So Aftermath is actually chapter 14 and 15 in the story. So this is the 15th issue. At this point in the run, the Sire is starting to realize, that his costume comes from an alien race, and this entire time he thought he was the good guy, and now he may have realized that his costume and everything that it's forcing him to do is actually puts him as the bad guy of the story. So that's where we're at with Aftermath.
Sounds like a Ben 10 series.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, yeah, that's cool stuff. It's definitely cool stuff between the two books.
Actually, you brought up a few stuff there, so this kind of makes the second question kind of very interesting, because I think a lot of people, if they sit here and watch this video,
sure,
this is probably one of the reasons why they stay so long. And so, what are the challenges have you faced bringing this project to life? Right, I saw that you talked about how you made Kickstarter your backbone, so I think that's going to be a part of that answer.
Sure.
But go through it, because it's
the
probably not
Sire's a
just
great. I
that,
mean,
but it's
yeah, the Sire's a great. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but the Sire's a great example of how to do everything wrong before you do it right. And the Sire came out in 06, so that is way before Kickstarter was even a thing. Back then, it was just Diamond, Diamond Distributors, which obviously, if anyone's following the news now, and we are a part of all that at Dren, because we were one of the companies that ended up, they owe us money. It's a very exciting place to be. But they were the only game in town in 06. But rewind even earlier, I had mentioned right out of college, the Sire started out as a book called Crossfire, and I was writing it and I was drawing it. And as soon as I got out of college, I submitted the first issue to Diamond, and it got turned down. And it got turned down because and they would give you a checklist back then. They would send you a letter, said, unfortunately, we're not going to carry your book. Here's the reasons. And it would be a checklist, and it just said the art wasn't good enough. And it was,
what?
and it sucked. Yeah, that's how they would reply with a letter. And then eventually an email. I mean, eventually email you, but email wasn't as popular a thing back then. And so I had to really rethink everything. So for about 2 years, I was just redrawing and redrawing, and I would not let, I would not be lazy with any of my panels. I would just continue to work and work and work. And at that point, I had just took a job at Wizard magazine. So that was my day job, was working at Wizard, and I'd work on the book at night. The funny thing about being an artist, and I think all artists can relate to this, and this happens no matter what. If you're drawing consistently, every 6 months, you're just going to get better. You're just going to get better. And that was actually a problem, because it was taking me forever to do the book, to redraw the book. So, every 3 months, page 16 would then be better than page 2.
Ooh.
And I'm like, all right, well, now I got to go back and finish page 2. I got to redraw page 2, because page 2 is not matching what I'm doing on page. Man, look at page 16. Look how much better I've gotten now. And then you have to go back and do page 2. And then it's like, I don't think I actually ever finished the book. Like, I just didn't finish the book. And I would show it around the office, and I would say, I would show it to different guys around the office, and they always say, like, oh, your art got better. But it was never, oh, your art's great. Wow, this is great. It was never that. It was just, oh, we've seen where you started.
Okay.
Here you are now. It got better. That's great. It was never good enough, though. And so that's, again, going back to that original thing, that's the challenge, where you have to really just figure out, like, what are you trying to do? Am I trying to get a job drawing Spider-Man, or am I trying to get a job writing Spider-Man? And the answer was writing it, I mean, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to do my own, create our own book. I was trying to write a story. I was trying to build a universe and create it. Met an artist named Dan Leister, became great friends. He's a tremendous artist. He did stuff for Hack Slash at Image, and Return to Wonderland at Zenescope. Sire was his first real gig. So I was always happy to be the one to get him there, and be his launching point. But his art, Talent Caldwell, who's also become a good friend of mine, did the cover for it, and Sire #1 was accepted at Diamond. We went through, like I said, Aftershock Comics. in '06, and it was exciting. That was exciting, but it really, you know, rejection is not the worst thing in the world. Honestly, it's sometimes you need to kind of face rejection. You need to face these things in order to put yourself where you're supposed to be.
And I hope we take something from that, because his biggest challenge wasn't the fact that he needed to fundraise. His biggest issue was the fact that he kept thinking that it needed to be better and better and better, and say, you know what, this ain't for me. Give it to somebody else. Let's create a team around it. And sometimes
Hmm.
that's the issue, the team.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, so wherever you stuck at, guys, just keep working at it. You'll never know what's going to open up for you.
yeah.
And
No, 100%.
yeah. So, how do you balance your writing on artistic side of your work?
I think these days, because I'm more in the publisher and writer seat, I want to draw more. I do. I just don't. I just don't. I mean, I did start to draw the next issue of Sire because I had this. I always have this wild idea that I'm going to do it, and I did. I mean, I did end up doing it. I did end up drawing an issue of Sire Rebirth, which was in stores uh, last year.
Mm,
So it's cool, yeah. So my art's been in stores, and that's great. So my art did make it through Diamond, so that's great. And so I guess in a way, I can tell my 21-year-old self that I did it.
mm.
But it just took forever. It just took too long. I can't juggle it all. I'm running a creative studio. I'm running a publishing company, and I'm also, writing,
It's
and
it's
it's just too
funny
much.
it's funny you said that, because you being able to tell your 21-year-old self that you actually did what you set out to do.
Yeah, that's true.
I could have dropped the mic right there, because honestly speaking, it's like there's a lot of people that say I came up on something, and they can't even look back at themselves and be like, man, I missed out, man. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. You can be like,
yeah.
nah, we did it. Here it is. Oh,
There's
you
a
got
there's a
it.
great
Like,
Yeah. There's a great Seth Rogen quote, the actor Seth Rogen, and he said, I eventually became a black belt in
mhm,
karate. And he said, I did it when I was 18. I finally, I did it. And, I was beating up kids who were 10 years old and 9 years old and 8 years old. But the only reason is because I stuck with it. I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And eventually I did it.
mhm.
And I kind of feel like that's kind of the way I think I've approached things, is that the industry that I grew up wanting to be a part of doesn't really exist anymore thanks to technology. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it just point blank, right? I mean, people can read comics on their iPad now. When I started out, there was no iPads. So,
Mhm. I
it's a
always say
different, it's a,
it
yeah,
evolved. It
it
didn't go
evolved, right?
away. People
100%.
still people still love the artwork. They just, the
Yes.
way they digest it is different.
I mean,
And
look at
so the
us. I
fact,
mean, we're talking in two different locations
mhm,
through a computer screen, through a microphone. I mean, that was completely foreign, 20 years ago.
mhm.
And so now I think I've just managed to be resilient and stuck it out, and good things are happening because of that.
Hey, I'm a programmer too, and as a web developer, I'm not sure you said you do development science stuff. We saw when AI does come,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of stuff to the market, but it doesn't change. But for us who have been in the market for a long time, we understand that that's no different than how WYSIWYG came in and it was supposed to do a lot of stuff, or some other
Hmm.
technologies came in when the cloud came in and now it became a stuff. So we just understand the market didn't change. It's just the way we interact with it changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So where can people find your comics and support your work?
So Kickstarter for sure. I'll actually put this in the chat too, because we literally just launched this page today.
Mhm.
It's a new
I'll put it
new
in the
comic book.
description when we're done. Don't worry, we make sure people
Yeah,
see
yeah,
it.
yeah. No, so this is a new comic book. I'm just the editor on this one,
Mhm.
but it's a really cool project. It's called Little Red Robin Hood. So that's a cool one too. So Kickstarter is a big thing. Again, all Dren productions start with Kickstarter,
Mhm.
and then moves from Kickstarter into retail about 6 months later. So you can get us in stores. And like I said, we're poised to make a big announcement next week in terms of more locations and more channels that you can pick up everything we do.
So are you planning on doing a single volume? multi-series or something ongoing with this one?
With this one, we're going to actually do everything we do is in miniseries format.
Okay.
Usually about 4 issues. It can go either 3 or 5 if we need to, but that's again talking about the comic book industry, right? I mean, and retailers say they want ongoing series to be able to hook their people in, but the sales numbers don't. The sales numbers don't back that up. I actually did Sire recently. I relaunched as a new number one, and it was basically chapter 7 of the story. But I was like, all right, so Sire Lost in Time number one because that's the next story arc. It was a 5 issue story arc, and then instead of starting Rebirth, which is what I was gonna do, I read that I watched this YouTube and all these retailers are like, we wish we had ongoing series. So I said, okay, I'll make instead of Sire Rebirth number one, I'll make Sire number 6 and Sire number 7 and Sire number 8. And our sales kind of just flatlined. I mean, we didn't really get that extra jolt. Meanwhile, if you launch with a new number one, you get an instant jolt of extra orders, covers as well too. If you get alternate covers, that'll give you a jolt of extra sales as well too. And so everything we do is a mini series, and then we can package that into a trade paperback volume and get that out into the world as well too.
Man, there is so much to discuss because it's like because you've been doing it for so long, there's so much about the business side. I could sit here and just talk to you days
Oh
on just
yeah,
that. And
yeah, no, happy to talk.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And listen. Just because the way the volume there, I guarantee you, I'm gonna do a second follow up just on the
Sure.
business side because I feel like a lot of people don't understand the business part. Because you just dropped some gems right there. For example, the you pointed out two inconsistencies in the market. The first one you pointed out was the fact that everyone wants you to consistently deliver on your stuff, and you
Yes.
see that in, especially if you're a webtoons artist like I produce or stuff like that.
Sure.
Consistency is the conversation they always sell you,
Yep.
and anyone that does a web series knows that consistency is hard.
Yeah. 100%.
and but you're just pointing out the fact that they ask for it, but it doesn't really reflect in your bottom line.
Correct.
And some and it's show and everyone goes through this frustration, especially if you're a webtoon artist, where it's like I'm trying to be more consistent, but I'm not seeing the rewards of it, and it's like, well, there is none.
Right. Right.
and,
I mean, look, at
and
the end of the
so
day, that's we are everybody, and you're gonna. I'll save this for the last question because I know you gave me the cheat sheet about the last question. But artists need to think of themselves as entrepreneurs, and the more you can do that, the more you look. You might not want to sell out. You might not. I mean, I grew up, again as an artist. I went to an art college. The whole idea of selling out. All my music, heroes, idols, don't sell out. Do it for the art. That's great, but you still got to make a living. And at the end of the day, your bottom line is what allows you to do your art. you know.
and I'm glad you said that. Now let's go. So I'm going to transition to our sponsor right now, but this is kind of a great way because this segment is going.
Sure.
I love it. I love it. Give me a second. I'm gonna go talk to our sponsors. And guys, as always, I always try to introduce you to our sponsor, which is My Comic AI. Um, My Comic AI, which is a brainstorm of mine, is all about treating yourself as a media franchise. Always think about yourself as it's not just about can I make a good comic or a good piece of art, but can I make it commercialized and sell it and make a living off of it? And my comic AI is all about creating that consistency that you need, so that you can be consistent with your artwork. So if you're looking for start your first comic and get it over the 1,000 comic book sold mark. That's what we aim to do. We're currently taking beta members to join our beta club. So if you're interested, let us know. Well, with that said, we're going back to the story because we're having a great conversation and want to make sure we keep going with it.
Hey, you
Okay.
got to pay those bills, man.
Thank you. Oh, hey, people need to know.
That's it.
All right. So the fourth section before we wrap up section is who has supported you most along the way, like any contributors, members, or friends and family that you like to thank.
Oh yeah, no, I mean my parents were always great. You know, it's funny because they and again they are great parents. They're still alive. Um, but they were great when I was younger in the sense that they were very skeptical about everything that I'm trying to do because they were more, like you got to get a job. My mom, and back like 20 years ago, you got to get a job with health insurance, whatever that is. You just got to get a job with health insurance. And so it wasn't. But at the same time, they were never like telling me I'm not, don't do this and don't do that. I mean, they were definitely very supportive. I mean, my dad. I mean, geez, my dad and I waited outside Wizard the comic book store when I was like 12 years old to get like Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. They were in getting, doing signatures. So I still have those books, signed by those guys. I should have to hang them up in my office. I have a lot of white space in my office and I'm been too busy to like hang more stuff up. But yeah, so like we waited in like the freezing cold, you know, to get books signed by them. That was when Image first came out and stuff like that. So my parents have always been very supportive. So I definitely give them the most credit and the big shout out.
Has anyone in the community comic community who really influence you or encourage you? You talked about your boss, so.
Oh yeah, no, Darren Sanchez, Buddy Scalera too has always been good. Buddy wrote some Deadpool also, and he's done a bunch. He did like Richie Rich comics and stuff. So it was a real good. Like Wizard magazine was a great place to work when it was around. It was real kid in the candy store kind of place to be. Met a lot of great people there. But like I said, Darren Sanchez ended up meeting Fabian Nicieza, become friends with him, and he's been tremendous. A tremendous resource as well too. Chris Simon was my editor at Image. She's over at Mad Cave now, so she's been a huge help. Dan Leister, like I said, all the artists I've worked with, Dan and Tony, the guys I'm working with right now too, Andres Barrero, who's issue 2 on plan, and Jorge. Sorry, not Jorge. Jorge's the colorist. Javier Ortiz. All these guys. Talon Caldwell's a good friend of mine. Now, I mean, that's kind of been the nice part. It's just we've all kind of grown up in this industry now, and we've all so it's I'm proud the fact that they're all friends, and more than that they're colleagues.
Mm-hmm. So we're now in the wrap up section. So
sure.
What's next for you? Are there any new projects in the works? It sounds
like
you
I
always
said,
got something.
Little Red Robin Hood, we just dropped that. And that's the one I'm editing that project, but it's a great story. And again, this one's created by James Massia. I'm the editor on it, and also be running the Kickstarter on it. In a kingdom ruled by wolves, one girl in a crimson hood takes aim at tyranny with arrows, attitude, and a grudge. So you can follow it. You can actually, it's great. It's a great mashup. James he's just so prolific with what he does. Plan 79, we just wrapped up. Plan 39, which hasn't officially been launched yet, but Plan 39 will launch around Halloween. That's written by Tom Hutchinson from Big Dog Inc. And again, I'm just managing the franchise for that one. Through Rogue Matter, I have a book called Time Trader that will be out in bookstores everywhere next year. But that one's already been done. So I guess I don't have to work on it anymore. It's done. But that'll be out next year. Lena's Fury is another one. So those will be in retail chains everywhere, Barnes and Noble, Borders, any of the bookstore chains. So very busy. And I've got, like I said, we've got some announcements coming. What's that?
So you have to keep the lights on. So there's never a dull moment.
No, there's never a dull moment, and quite frankly, it's fun. So I'm okay with it.
I was gonna say to everyone, in order to follow him, I will also post all of his information in the description. So all the social media handles. But for the rest of the argument, please just tell him right now, and I'll make sure it's posted there.
Cool.
No, that's it.
Social media. You can get me at Sire Studios on Instagram and Facebook. You can go to SireStudiosInc.com. That's the website. Go to DrenProductions.com also, though. That's really the main site where all the materials really getting published these days. We have what else do I have? Sire_studios. So look up Sire Studios, and I'm around, and you can Google it and you'll find me.
All right, and the last question I have, and I set you up for this one, so I hope
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got it
yeah, yeah.
made it. As that, what advice would you give someone just starting out in the comics today?
And I think I kind of said it, but I'll elaborate on it a little bit more. Is you have to think about yourself as an entrepreneur. I did. I can't say that I didn't, right? I definitely had a mindset coming out of college that I wanted to run my own business and I wanted that business to be comics. However, the issue that I found was, you know, I always just said, oh, I'll make the product and the money will come.
Mm.
And there's truth to that. There are definitely a lot of artists out there where they put stuff out in the world and it immediately clicks and the money starts showing up. It does 100%. However, I think sports is a great analogy. There's only one LeBron James. There's only one Michael Jordan, right? And then there's maybe a handful, maybe 10, 15 other athletes who are just naturally gifted that are going to skyrocket to the top. The rest of the people that make it are the ones that are in the gym 10 hours a day, grinding it out, And so it was never a problem of hard work for me. I was always a hard worker. I always loved to work. I still love to work. I still put in long hours, even with kids and a family now. But it was just being smart about the hard work. A lot of the hard work I was doing just wasn't the smart way to do it. And there was a resistance to me. I mean, if I had opened my creative studio up right out of college, I would have, I use a lot of the money that I make in my creative studio to fund the comic book stuff. And having that as a resource, I mean, it's definitely helped propel everything forward. So that would be the advice. Your art is your business. Your business is your art, and marry the two. Get over the fact that you got to make money, and then once you do, and once you start making it, it's going to snowball, and it's going to be great.
The operation Miranda behind my comic AI. I think you'd be a great mentor to some kids these days.
Yeah, no, I'm always happy to do that.
Yeah,
I'm always happy to talk.
I can feel that you have a passion for it because it's like you want them to not only succeed at it, but to thrive at it, and you kind of just figure out a business model that allows them to understand it. So,
and everyone's model might be different, right? Everybody's model might be different. They might find something that's different. I mean, the business model I have now is something that I could have done 20 years ago. But I just resisted it. And so, yeah, so that's, absolutely 100%.
A lot of that is the resistance a lot of it is just not knowing.
Yeah.
It's simple that, and I find that just getting yourself exposed, and I think I use this as a way to get exposed as well. You get to see the other sides of it and how it formulates, because even when it comes to like comic book persons that put art strips in newspapers, that's an entire different way of looking at the business, but it's the same thing. And and when I was looking into the different branding of media outlets, it's like some are storytellers, some are just one-offs, some are shorter span stuff, and it's like each of those things have their own medium and model to follow. And so it's just about, I think a lot of times with younger artists and even especially not newer artists, is just figuring out which channel they want to go to and then figuring out that process. And you might pivot later. Who knows? You might find something else. But with that said, I do want to thank you for the time you took out for your day to kind of give me this opportunity to talk to you. Everyone, check out Mike's and the series. Plan 79, Desire, from Outer Space. There's so much work that he has. I wish I could do it better justice, but he's a better person at doing than I am. So check his stuff out and look forward to talking to you guys at the next episode of Behind the Comics. Peace out.